Good morning, y'all. I hope Blow the Whistle woke y'all up a little bit. One of my favorite sayings is, if you can't run with the big dogs, stay on the porch. And I know I'm with some big dogs this morning. It is a true pleasure to be with you. I first want to start by thanking Dr. Hill for inviting me to speak with you all today. But more importantly, I want to thank her for her leadership and her friendship. It's really important that we have friends as we journey through this work together. And I want to thank you all for making time. I know it is an early morning at the end of a long year. So thank you so much for making time to hear a couple words from me. So I have to admit that when I was initially asked to give this keynote, I thought to myself, are you sure? There are certainly two sides of me. There is the executive director of Leading on Opportunity, Sherri, and then there is the Sherri who is obsessed with Afrobeat, the Sherri who recently hard-earned her motorcycle license. I had to take it 3 times. But we know that standardized tests are not a true reflection of my skill and ability. It's important that I got it. And that has recently rediscovered her love of reality TV. Please remind me to tell you all what I'm recently obsessed with. But upon reflection, I realized that I am with family. And let me tell you why. I can call you all my family. See, education and educators have been a part of my journey all my life. I started my career in public service and K-12 education in a district much like that of CMS. But my journey with education started long before me. It actually started in Florence, Alabama. So I am from Detroit, Michigan. What up, though, to any Detroiters in the room? And what that means for somebody of my generation, particularly a Black woman, is that if not my parents, certainly the generation before them is not originally from Detroit. They migrated to Detroit as a part of the Great Migration in the early 50s, and that is very much so true for my family. If you were to ask folks from Michigan where their family's from, you would hear answers like Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and a tiny town in northern Alabama is where my family's from. They migrated, and when I say they, I say my granny, Ruby Lucille, and my grandfather, Luther Haywood, migrated to Detroit to escape the Jim Crow South, like many Black folks did during that time. They left in hopes of strong jobs, opportunities to educate their children, and a place where they could buy a home that they could leave for them. And that's what they did. They had my mother, Deidre, my uncle, Gerald, who I affectionately call Uncle G, and my uncle, Daryl. They had these 3 children in Detroit when they were seeking better opportunity. But unfortunately, we know that they did not arrive to a bed of roses. As much as they were seeking opportunity, the jobs that were available, while they afforded, some would say, a livable wage, my grandfather worked for Ford Motor Company on the line, and what that meant is really grueling hours and harsh conditions. They originally rented, and that meant that they were renting from slumlords where sometimes things worked and other times they didn't. And my granny, Ruby, who was all of 5'2", but very strong-willed, said, I refuse to get on the aid. And for those who don't know what that is, that means welfare. And so here are 2 really strong, determined folks who showed up in a situation that was less than ideal and maybe not exactly what they hoped for. And that meant some really challenging dynamics at home. And so my mother, while she knew the opportunities that her parents wanted for her, she really found escape and respite at school. My mom often tells me about how she enjoyed going to school because she knew that the teacher would be there to greet her. She knew that she would have a solid meal. And what she enjoyed most is that she could read all the books that would allow her to escape to other places. This is not different from many of the students that you all serve today. And not different from many of the families who have migrated here to Charlotte, whether it be from other places in the US or elsewhere, looking for a new opportunity. And you all make a way to connect to those students. And so my mom loved education so much that she decided that she too would go on to become an educator. She's the first college graduate of my family, and she went on to become an elementary school teacher and retired as an elementary school principal in Title I schools always. She only worked in Title I schools. She said it's where she felt her best and where she knew she could give back to students who came from similar situations like her. I am the daughter of a teacher and a principal, which is to say that I saw my mother show up as a counselor, as a friend, as a sister, not only for her teachers, but for the parents of her students. And what that often looked like is doing the best that she could with the limited resources that were available to her. I have fond memories of going to school with my mom as a very young girl and meeting the teachers. Our dining room was converted into a workroom. I remember it was my responsibility to put the stickers on the handwritten report or the paper report cards and handwritten notes after she'd done it. It was who we were. Our home and family were connected. And I have planned, organized, cleaned up from more teacher potlucks than I care to admit. It was how she celebrated her staff, and I'm sure many of you have participated in potlucks just like that. And so my granny started this journey as a teacher's aide. My mother went on to become a teacher and principal, and I too decided that I was going to go into education. And I was also really honest with myself, having seen the hard work that my family had done, that I knew the importance of education, and I also quite honestly didn't have what it took to be in the classroom. So after a career in corporate, I transitioned into public education to continue the legacy of my granny and of my mom. And my first role was in a district, much like that of CMS, Fulton County Schools in Metro Atlanta. My first office was in a converted hall closet where I couldn't drink the water in the building. And I loved it. It still, to this day, is one of my very favorite jobs. It was my responsibility to solve the things that the other leaders either didn't have time or capacity to do because they were focused on instruction. I helped figure out what the architect contracts could look like so that we would save resources across schools. I worked on the black hole of teacher duty days. And eventually I found myself working in the superintendent's office leading the strategic plan as his chief of staff. It was also where I began to understand why the handwritten notes and potlucks were so important. I began to understand that each year, as you all will hear today, the district, you all set out to achieve the loftiest of goals, working hard for students to give them what you know they deserve. And each year, you know that you may not have the exact type of resources you need to keep your staff motivated or to give them what they deserve. But you do it anyway. You show up with the handwritten notes, you throw the potlucks because you know it's what they deserve. And I know it's what you all will do this year. It's the very same reason why my husband and I moved here in 2020. Like my granny and my grandfather just 2 generations before, we wanted better opportunity for our child. My daughter, who's now 3 years old, who was born at Presby, Maine, so she is very much so a real Charlottean. We moved here despite a national study, which we call the Chetty study, because we wanted to do something about it. What the Chetty study says is that if you were born in Charlotte, born in poverty in Charlotte, the likelihood of you dying in poverty was very high. And this came as a stark reality to some folks who don't work in the spaces that you all work in. How could it be true that a community that is seen as one of the fastest growing is missing an entire population with opportunity? I know that you all have known this all along and that you've been working hard to make those circumstances better. At Lead In on Opportunity, we serve as a community consultant. Our work is to help Charlotte become better so that the children have what they deserve. We work towards economic mobility to make sure that we're making a way for the parents of the children that you serve. And like I said with my mother, it's no different than it is today. Those families and those children are still seeking and deserve the things that lead to economic growth and prosperity. They need a stable home, they need to keep the lights on, and parents need not to work multiple jobs so that they can show up for their children in the way that they deserve. You all know the data. You know what it means to make tremendous impact for children. You know that your children are living in circumstances that are less than what they deserve, and yet you do the work every day because you believe in the possibility. Our organization tracks this type of data. We're able to look at home ownership. We're able, because of the good work that y'all provide, look at things like graduation rate and reading scores. And we share that information with business leaders, with government leaders, with nonprofit leaders who are looking to support the good work you all have been doing all along. And all while you all do this work, you're also faced with really harsh feedback, accusing you all of failing the students because the test scores aren't high enough, the graduation rates aren't where we want them to be, FAFSA wasn't completed, the list goes on and on. And despite all of this, you all continue to show up every day to give those babies a hug, to write the handwritten notes, to throw the potlucks, to stretch a dollar, to make sure that you're giving not only the students, but those who serve the students directly the encouragement and appreciation they need. And for the other folks in the room who may not be instructional leaders, they're elected officials, people who work in nonprofit like me, let us worry about the things outside of the classroom. And you all focus on the good work of what happens in the classroom and the schoolhouse. Because we know that the work that you all do of loving, leading, and inspiring the next generation is what's going to make Charlotte better. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning. You all look absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Sherri, for opening us up this morning. Sherri is an amazing leader, a great friend, and I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to share the space with you this morning. And look at this amazing space and everything that's set up. I'd like to thank Kimberly Vaught for her leadership, as well as the SLC leadership team for putting everything together. Can you please give everyone a great round of applause? Well, I will tell you from standing up on this stage, you all look absolutely amazing. So turn to your neighbor and say, I'm not sure if you got a haircut today, you got your lip waxed over the weekend, got a new outfit, but you look absolutely amazing. Well, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools leaders and invited guests, I am so excited to stand before you today. I'm really excited because today I can say that I have completed my first year as superintendent of the most amazing school district in the country. Many of you have heard me say that I have a 25-year career and my favorite job of all times is being a principal. Well, I just wrapped up year 26 here in North Carolina, and I can say I have a new favorite job, and that's serving as your superintendent. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I absolutely love Mecklenburg County. I love this beautiful city. And so in becoming the superintendent here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, I have moved. In fact, in the last 12 months, I have moved 4 times. But it was all worth it because I have the opportunity to live in this beautiful, beautiful community. One thing that I love about our city, one thing that I love about our county is that everyone really wants to lean in. We have a community that's filled with such amazing leaders. I've had the opportunity to meet with Hugh McCall, who is one of the pioneers of our great city, and he said something to me. He said there are 3 ingredients to make sure that a community thrives. Number 1, excellent entertainment. We definitely have that. A strong housing market and excellent education systems. And that is for pre-K-12 as well as higher education. We are growing and we are a thriving community filled with people who are committed to leading to ensure our county is an amazing place for everyone to learn, to live, to work, and to have a lot of fun. And with that comes amazing leadership. I am so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with and for an amazing school board. We have a 9-member school board, and each one of our school board members are extremely talented, they are passionate, they are dedicated, and they are laser focused on improving outcomes for students. Our school board members, some of them are here today. If you will please stand to be recognized. Thank you so much for your leadership. And speaking of leadership, we have leadership at all levels here in our county. Of course, we have our Mecklenburg County delegation. We have our leaders on the board of the county commissioners. And we have our various municipalities, all that make up our beautiful community. And look at all of these amazing companies, partners, and funding organizations that support Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. I've had the opportunity to invite some very special guests, so if you are here today as a special guest, please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools plays a substantial, critical role in the ecosystem of economic development here in Mecklenburg County. This year, we will be opening up our doors and welcoming over 141,000 beautiful students across Mecklenburg County, from Huntersville to Ballantyne, from Matthews and Mint Hill all the way to Coolwood. And the responsibility, the vision, the mission, the call to action that accompanies welcoming students and families is clear. We must lead with excellence. Students must learn, students must grow, students must develop academically, physically, and emotionally, and students must thrive. Because when students thrive, students graduate, enrolled, enlisted, or employed. We just had the opportunity to shake thousands of hands as students walked across the stage, and we're so excited to recognize just a few students that have endless possibilities awaiting them. Meet Frida Guerrero Ocho, who is a graduate of Philip O'Berry. She is very proud family over there. She is a recipient of the Levine Scholarship, and she will be attending UNC Charlotte in the fall. Give it up for Frida. And this young man looks so familiar. Carter LeGrand, who is a graduate of East Mecklenburg High School. And he is also the son of David LeGrand, principal at Rocky River High School, and he will be attending the U.S. Air Force Academy this fall. Meet Jaime Torres. Jaime is a graduate of Independence High School, and he will be employed by Swinerton, which is a national construction company. These three Garinger High School graduates, Khalik Wade, Christian Smart, Laquarius Ross, all signed full college scholarships through a partnership with the eSports program. This program opens paths of educational growth in coding and gaming. Congratulations to these graduates. Isaiah Blevins is a graduate of West Mecklenburg High School. He will be employed full-time through an electrical apprenticeship with Gaylor Electric, which is a full-service industrial electrical contractor. And Nadia Cisse is the student body president. She is a graduate of the inaugural class of Palisades High School, and she will be attending Spelman College in the fall. And y'all know, of course, I couldn't recognize my own sweet Madison Hill. Madison Hill is a proud graduate of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Virtual Academy. She received a D1 scholarship to play tennis and an academic scholarship, and she will be attending St. Louis University this fall. In my first year as superintendent, it's been my primary goal and focus to work with our Board of Education to build a really strong foundation. I recognize that achieving the goals before us is a multi-year effort. In order to set up for success, we had to start by building a really strong foundation. Setting a foundation included setting high expectations for leadership in our district and making changes in leadership when needed. I hold very high expectations for everyone in this room and even higher expectations and standards for myself. Setting a strong foundation means building a strong team. I've had the opportunity to expand my cabinet and those that work around me to now include all of our assistant and associate superintendents, our chiefs, and of course our deputy superintendent. Will the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools cabinet members please stand to be recognized? Thank you so much for your leadership. Setting a strong foundation means ensuring that all of our principles are in place. I am really excited to say that today, all but one of our principles are in place for the coming school year. If you will be serving in a new role as a principal in a different school, or for some of you, your very first principalship, will you please stand to be recognized? Congratulations. Setting a strong foundation has included rebuilding systems and processes for the way we do business. It means that we've had to monitor our progress to be sure that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do. And it also means that we've had to figure out how to leverage our resources as we transition to a budget that does not include $190 million of federal funds that came as a result of the pandemic. Setting a foundation has included the development of a 5-year strategic plan and a 1-year district annual plan, a task that has taken the last 7 months and has included members from our community. And in this past year, our community responded to supporting Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools as we set the foundation. The citizens in our community voted yes for a $2.5 billion bond package that will allow us to complete 30 projects over the next several years. I am also proud to say that Mecklenburg County Commissioners unanimously voted yes to fully fund our budget request, which will include funding for our technology one-to-one refresh, repairing facilities that are not included in our bond project, providing increases to our lowest paid employees, and increasing the teacher supplement in an attempt to get our teachers to a living wage here in Mecklenburg County. And we are very proud that over 466 community partners provide support to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. We launched our very first partnership summit to strategically align the needs of the expertise of the partners in our community with the needs of our students in our schools. But I can't stand before you today without acknowledging that what has been required of each of you, especially this past year, for our district leaders and also our school leaders, it's been really tough. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of new systems, processes, and procedures. We did a reorganization, which was organizing for endless possibilities. And we know that our success depends upon a number of factors. But student achievement and the endless possibilities that achievement creates for students are by far the most important. Principals, assistant principals, master teachers, and our learning community staff are accountable for the leadership in that work. And even in the easiest of times, this is a heavy lift. And in times of change, the lift is even heavier. But despite all the things that have happened this year that could have been distractions, countless principals, directors, chiefs, teachers, students, and families responded with a disposition of excellence without exception. And based on our preliminary, unofficial results, we have some good news to share. We know that more than 75% of our third grade students have met the state requirements of Read to Achieve based on state legislation. Just last week, we held our summer reteach and reassessment camp, and we saw increases in students who achieved grade level proficiency and college career readiness who were not proficient on the first time. I'd like to say a very special thank you to all of our schools that worked hard to provide an additional opportunity for our students, and many of our schools are seeing an increase in their school performance grade. Congratulations. And I just have to say that we had several principals that absolutely knocked the ball out of the park. As a veteran principal with a track record of leading tremendous gains in academic achievement previously at Windsor Park Elementary School, Principal Shanna Ray accepted the call to transition to University Park Creative Arts Academy this past school year. And in just 1 year, I have chills, University Park is projected to have double-digit at 19% gains in student college and career readiness. Similarly, Beth Marshall transitioned from Briarwood Academy to Druid Hills Academy this past school year. And in just 1 year, Druid Hills is projected unofficially to have double-digit, about 13% gains in students' college and career readiness. Congratulations. And they are not alone. Gina O'Hare at Harper Middle College, Tracy Hager at Lansdowne Elementary, Shannon Hamilton at Croft Community Elementary School, Kira Mashaw at Wingan Park Elementary, Latricia Wilson at Tuckasegee Elementary, and Shalinda Williams. And yes, Shalinda Williams. She's retiring this year, but she was saying, I'm going out with a bang. They are projected to have double-digit gains in grade level proficiency, and most of them will also see double-digit gains in college and career readiness. Let's give it up for them. And there are countless more, and I am looking forward to celebrating as our official data comes in September with our principals and our school community. But we must work to continue to ensure that all schools and all students are achieving at high levels consistently year over year. Historically, as a district, our growth and proficiency has been incremental, but students don't strive with incremental growth. We must have goals that are more than just incremental for our students to thrive. We must hire and retain high-quality staff. We must ensure that our students are engaged in standard-aligned curriculum using our district curriculum and curriculum supplements. And we must make sure that we set up strong systems and processes within our schools to make sure that every single staff member understands their role. I talked a little bit about our Board of Education earlier, and as I said, they are laser focused on increasing student outcomes. And in October, they passed 4 goals and 4 guardrails. The goals are designed to ensure that we are reaching the high levels that our students deserve. Our school board members went out and collected over 60,000 pieces of data. And with that data, they were told that we need to focus on 4 critical areas: improving early literacy in grades K through 2, improving literacy skills for students in grades 3 through 8, ensuring that all students who are enrolled in Math 1 have a strong foundation, and making sure that our students are ready when they graduate high school. So our goal 1 is focused on early literacy, which is focused on the percent of kindergarten through 2nd grade students who are at or above grade level, and the goal is to move from 67% to 91% in June of 2029. Our goal 2 is focused on grades 3 through 8 literacy. And one of the things that I've talked about a lot is high expectations. So let me be clear about this slide. We are talking about college and career readiness, which is the highest level of performance. This is not talking about students being able to read. So when you're out in the community and people might say, I can't believe Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools sets their goals so low, and I cannot believe that only 30% of students in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools can read. That's not what this slide is saying. What this slide is saying and what this goal is saying is that we have high expectations, that we expect at least 50% of our students by June of 2029 to be scoring at the highest levels of achievement in reading. Our goal 3 is the same, that focus on college and career readiness for all students who are enrolled in Math 1, and the goal is to move from 27% to 57% by June of 2029. And then our last goal, you will notice that there are blanks here, and they're blanks here because we don't have a baseline. But our goal is to ensure that when our students graduate Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, that they are enrolled, enlisted, and employed, because we know that will ensure endless possibilities for them. So in pursuit of the goals, the board has also set some guardrails that we have to stay within. These are not another set of goals, but they are simply things that we have to make sure that we stay within, and there are 4 of them. The first one is equity over equality. The second is safety and security. The third is attending to the whole child. And the last one is so very important, ensuring that we have the very best teachers in front of our students. So again, guardrail 1 is ensuring that we are closing the gaps. We know that historically there are groups of students who have performed lower than other groups of students. So this goal is saying that in pursuit of all those other goals that we talked about, this guardrail has to ensure that we're closing achievement gaps. Goal 2 is that it's my responsibility, our responsibility, to make sure that our students are in a safe environment when they're at school, when they're on transportation, and when they are at school-related activities. Guardrail 3 is to ensure that we're attending to the whole child. Of course we are going after academic outcomes. That's why we exist. Parents send their students to school so they can learn. But we also want to make sure that we attend to the whole child, to the whole person. And goal 4 is ensuring that we have a staffing model to make sure that we are making sure that we are recruiting, retaining, and developing the very best talent. But let's be clear about the task before us. The learning standards that we have right now are the most rigorous learning standards in the history of the United States. And it's because of us, as leaders, we have to make sure that we are pressing in on that rigor. The other thing that I want to say is when we look at the rate at which we are expecting to improve as a collective, so just a minute ago I talked about double-digit growth for individual schools. As we start to look across the aggregate, across our district, and then when you get larger and start looking at states, and then even nationally, you will see that districts do not make that level of gains year over year. But as I just shared with you, the goals that we have before us are requiring us to make huge gains. And while those goals are lofty, I do believe that they are attainable. But let's go back in time to 2015, because I'd like to set some context around the rate at which we need to progress. So in 2015, President Obama signed into law the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. And in this legislation, each state was required to submit a plan for improving outcomes for students, including how we are going to close proficiency gaps. So I know it might be difficult to see what's on this slide, but what I want to point out to you is several things. First of all, you will see the first column that goes across is taking a look at all students. So what this legislation was saying, it's critically important that we're tracking the growth of students across time, And in this legislation, it's called Yearly Measures of Interim Progress. So you see we're tracking all students, and then below that black line, you see subgroups or groups of students. The other thing that I want to point out is you will see that there are 2 grade columns there. We all know now that those 2 grade columns represent the 2 years that official data was not collected due to the pandemic. The other thing that I want to point out is that the measures of interim progress go through 12 years. But take a really close look. You see in the 1, 2, 3rd column there, you will see percent of increase per year. So for all students across the state of North Carolina, the goal is to increase 2 percentage points per year for 12 years to meet the goal. Let that sit in for a minute. You will also notice that below that black line, those numbers are a little bit higher than 2 years because the goal is to close achievement gaps. I was at a conference earlier this school year, and we were in San Diego. It was the Council for Great City Schools, which we are a member. And in that conference, a speaker said, it was a national speaker, any district that increases 3 percentage points a year, that is a Herculean effort. Everybody say with me, Herculean effort. Herculean effort. So if we go back and take a look at the goals that we have, we are expected to make about 5% gains every single year. So I want that to resonate just for a minute. The Board of Education is responsible for setting the what. The what is clear. It represents what we must do. But now we need to move on to the how of how we're going to get there, because it can happen. So we have our strategic plan. It is set for 24 through 2029. And let me tell you what's different about this plan. This plan is comprehensive. It attends to how our district organizes for success in all areas of the organization. Our plan is aligned with the goals and guardrails the board has set before us. The plan cascades from the boardroom all the way to the classroom, and our plan is supported with comprehensive, continuous improvement framework, which includes monitoring our routines to ensure that we are making progress. This plan includes all of us, and the strategies in this plan leverage the skills, the passion, the expertise of the entire community in Mecklenburg County, and it's calling on all residents to lead in this incredible opportunity. So our 5-year strategic plan, we facilitated multiple engagement sessions with students, families, parents, teachers, staff, school leaders, and between November 2023 and April 2024, as soon as those goals and guardrails were passed, we were on it. We had 36 meetings lasting an average of 2 to 4 hours each, with 4 working teams made up of 50 people representing 10 divisions and 40 departments, and of course we had school leaders that were a part of all of that work. Our strategic plan is anchored in our 4 pillars of excellence. We know that academic excellence is our core competency. We must lead the way. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is committed to educating the whole child in world-class standards, and we will provide standard-aligned comprehensive curriculum. We will do that. These are our priorities. We will do that by providing high-quality standards-based instruction, ensuring that we have multiple life pathways, eliminating achievement and proficiency gaps. We will instill the love of learning, and we will develop the well-being of every single student in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. One of my favorite quotes by Zig Ziglar is, "Things don't just happen, people make them happen." So it only makes sense that our second pillar is people excellence. In Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, we are committed to improving the employee experience, which is inclusive of enhancing recruiting, retention, and training opportunities. Our priorities are that we will competitively recruit and retain. We will make sure that we are leveraging professional learning. We will attend to staff wellness, and we will interweave high-performance standards to make sure that we are meeting the needs of everyone in our school community. And operational excellence. In Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, we're committed to operational efficiency and effectiveness through safe and clean environments, making sure that we have the very best technologies for students to learn, we have prudent spending, and enhanced data use. We will maintain great facilities in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. We will modernize our technology infrastructure, and that also includes leveraging AI. We will ensure prudent spending to improve effectiveness in our school district, and we will be a data-driven district. And finally, engagement excellence. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is committed to being a collaborative and inclusive community partner to ensure consistent two-way communication, to equitably meet the needs, source funding, and create new opportunities for all. Our priorities for this pillar is to make sure that we are focused, working very closely with all agencies, building really strong homeschool partnerships, building two-way communication to make sure that Charlotte-Mecklenburg is an amazing place. You can find our strategic plan along with our district annual plan on our website. It launched this morning at 12:01 a.m. So we've discussed the what, the goals and the guardrails that the Board of Education has put before us. We've discussed the how, our 5-year strategic plan. And we've also discussed the 1-year annual plan. But now let's talk about what I expect as your leader from each of you. You all are leaders in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. Excellence without exception. We talked a lot about that last year, and it will continue to be our mantra. Excellence without exception means 3 things. Number 1, we're delivering on the Crown experience. Number 2, we're leading from the driver's seat. And number 3, we are rowing together. But excellence without exception does not mean perfection. It means that we are committed to getting 1% better each and every day. And wow, have we grown. I can say, as a leader, I can think of many ways that I have grown and improved this year. And I am so happy to say that I am not the same leader that stood before you last year, because I took very seriously the importance of getting 1% better each and every day. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot, and I am committed. One of my goals, though, for the coming year is the opportunity to engage in meaningful ways with more stakeholders. And we began that process just last week. I had the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with several of our principals who are just absolutely amazing leaders. And I did not have the opportunity to share highlights for each one of them, but I did want to shout out just a few. These leaders, I believe, embody excellence without exception. First, we have Dr. Tracy Harrell. Tracy is a proud principal at Providence High School. When we sat down and talked with Tracy, we asked her, what is the secret sauce? You have been there a really long time, and it runs like clockwork. What is it? And this is what she said. I have high expectations for everyone, and it starts with me. Then she said this, I love it. We have to be professional. It doesn't take a lot of money to look professional. You need to look, and I expect my teachers and staff to look like someone people can trust their child with. She said, I don't ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do. There is no job that's too minimal for me, and I do everything that's needed to do, and that resonates with people because they see you leading. She also said, I try to send the message that I am just another member of the team, that it takes all of us bringing our very best selves each and every day to make this team work. Then she reflected for a while and she said this, This work is harder than it's ever been. And I tell my staff, I know that there are times when you're on edge, but you have to be the professional. If you need to come to my office, let it go, we'll work through it, but when we leave this room, we leave it and we are professional. She also said that she loves going to work. She said when her feet hit the floor, it doesn't matter what happened yesterday, today is a new day and we are going to make it happen. Give it up for Dr. Tracy Harrell. The next individual I had the opportunity to meet with is Mr. Orlando Robinson. Proud principal at West Charlotte High School. And he said that kids are so receptive to the changes that we are making, and we are focused on bringing the joy and returning the roar. And he said that he loves it because it is a joyful place to work and learn. And one thing that he said that really struck me is he said it was a game changer when his daughter came to school with him. She was a student in another high school, and she said, "Dad, I want to come to school with you." And that gave him a new perspective. So before, he was really leading with intentionality, but now he is leading knowing that his daughter is one of the students in the school, and he is making sure that it is the very best. One of the things that he said that resonated with me is that we have to change the trajectory of our students. So thank you, Mr. Robinson, for your leadership. Next, I met with Tamara Looney. Tamara is the proud principal at Still Creek Elementary School. She just finished her second full year, and guys, get this, she has moved grade level proficiency over 20 points in the last 2 years. She said a game changer for her was the 4 disciplines of execution, 4DX. She said she is laser focused on what are the 1 to 2 things that are her big rocks. She said her 2 big things are culture and small group instruction, and everything they do is focused on those 2 things. Tamara said something that I loved about culture. She said the behavior that you accept is the culture that you create in your school. So thank you so much for your leadership, Tamara. And last but not least, I'd like to shout out Shannon Hamilton, who is a proud principal at Croft Community School. Shannon was at Long Creek for 5 years and had exceeded growth. She moved on over to Croft this past school year, and she has been really focused on a data culture. She said she worked really hard with her MVPAs and standard aligned instruction to make sure that they were making intentional instructional shifts to meet the needs of her students. She also said that at her school, as the secret sauce is the teacher leadership pathway to make sure that she has strong leaders and are making sure that students are growing every single day. So give it up for Shannon. So I have to tease Shannon. One of the things that Shannon said is she talked a lot about the Crown experience, and she kind of all of them poked back at me, which I absolutely love, by the way. But Shannon said, "You know the secret, right? Like the little joke that we have as principals." Sorry, I'm telling your secret. And I said, "No, what?" And she said, "Well, you know when y'all send stuff down and it's not right, we snicker and say, 'Now, was that the Crown experience?'" I said, "Yeah, you're right. We're getting better 1% every single day." But when you think about the Crown experience, there are 3 tenets to customer service. Number 1, access. We have to make it easy for everyone to reach the right person who can help them. Number 2, response time. We have to guarantee that everyone will receive a timely response. And number 3, superior experiences. We have to guarantee that every response will be accurate, courteous, and complete. That's what I expect of everyone in this room. Next, I expect everyone to lead from the driver's seat. If we are leaders, we have to be in the driver's seat. Nobody likes a backseat driver, nobody. That means that we have to have executive presence, meaning that we have executive dress and professionalism, we have executive communication, and we have executive service to our students, our staff, our community, and to each other. You are the CEO of your school, your department, or your division. Own your calling, own your plan, own your results, and motivate your team to create a movement. And finally, we must row together. One of my favorite things that I do with my family, I like to spend lots of time with my family, but we love to watch movies on Friday night. And I'll give you another little secret. Sometimes it bleeds over into Sunday because I always fall asleep in the middle of the movie on Friday nights. But most recently, my husband picked out a movie called Boys in the Boat. How many have seen this movie? If you haven't seen it, your homework by the end of this week is to watch this movie, Boys in the Boat. But it takes place during the Great Depression. It takes place at the University of Washington, and the main character is Joe. And Joe is in a terrible situation. He's homeless. He believes that his parents are both deceased. But he is focused on attending the University of Washington because he knows and believes that educational attainment is his ticket to economic mobility. He knows that and he believes that. Well, as he continues, he's homeless, he's hungry, it's a Great Depression, he can't find work. His school bill comes up and he's forced with a decision. Like the registrar's office says, if you don't pay, you can no longer be a student. So his friend tells him, hey, the rowing team is selecting 8 boys to be on the rowing team. And if we get on this team, we will have free tuition, we'll have a place to live, we'll have food, we'll have it made. So Joe's only thought was that his goal is to make it through school, and so he's going to do whatever he has to do. He knows absolutely knows nothing about rowing. But spoiler alert, he makes the team, of course, and what he soon finds out is that his goal was just to finish his education at the University of Washington. But really, he was in for a world of learnings. Through everything that happened with him personally, as well as with his team, he learned from his coach that it's not about you, it's about the boat. And I'll just say right now, in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, it is not about me, it is not about you, it is about the students that we serve every single day, and it is about improving their lives, and not just their lives, but for generations to come to impact how they thrive in their economic mobility. One of the things that they said is that the crew is connected by all of the hours that they had spent together, through the sweat and the pain. Someone in the movie was telling Joe, I've built a lot of good boats, but the very best one, the boats where every part fits exactly as it should, when every person trusts the one behind them, they are the boats that people remember forever. He goes on to say, that's what this boat can be. They were preparing for the Olympics. That's what this boat could be. It would be a shame for anyone to miss seeing how fast it could go with all of the right pieces. They go on to do amazing things despite all of the challenges, turmoil, and haters they encountered. When Joe, the main character, is asked what it was like to row on a team of 8, his response was, it was never 8. We were always 1. We have the unique opportunity right here in Mecklenburg County to create a movement. We have the opportunity to work as one team to create endless possibilities, because endless possibilities await us if we all work together. And to my CMS family, endless possibilities. It starts right here with us.
So now I have the wonderful opportunity to talk with them just a little bit more. You had the opportunity to submit some questions, and I think that they're going to be bringing them forward. But because my previous job required me to ask questions, I do have a few of my own that I'm going to get us started with. But I do hope that you'll see people walking through. If you have a question, please share it. We will try to get through just a few before it's time to move on to the next one. So I'm going to start with this. Dr. Hill, I really love the slide of the gentleman trying to lift that big tire. And I think every leader in the room would agree with you when you say that day-to-day work is extremely hard. So whether you are leading in a school building or leading the school district or a nonprofit, I want you to talk a little bit about your suggestions for how you keep the momentum and maintain the engagement with your team, and what you'd like to see school leaders do in their buildings.
Thank you, Sonia. So I would say the first thing is always remembering the why we got into this work. So none of us got into this work because it was flashy or the money was amazing. We got into this work because we wanted to make a difference. So I think that's the very first thing. The second thing that I would say to keep yourself motivated is to make sure that you are trying to look for the gold in every situation. I will say for me personally, that is difficult because I'm kind of like Bob the Builder. Can she fix it? Yes, she can. That's what I like to do. I like to fix things. So when you're fixing things, you're constantly looking for things that are wrong. But really having to flip your perspective, and that can become daunting, right? It can be a really heavy weight. But when you start looking at the goal and start coming from an asset-based mindset instead of a deficit-based mindset, it makes all the difference in the world. And then the last thing that I would say is surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who really understand and share the same why that you do and are just all in. They're just like fearless. Like, you know what, doesn't matter. We're just gonna jump off in the deep end of the pool because it's what's necessary for our students.
That makes that hiring so critically important, right? So Sherri, talk with us a little bit, while Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is very focused on proficiency in college and career readiness, I know that Leading on Opportunity is as well. Share some, at a high level, some of the strategies that you all are trying to implement in the community. And by the way, before you answer, I think everyone in this room appreciated how you acknowledged in your presentation that everyone has a role to play, that the students in CMS are not just CMSs, but the community owns a role. And so I know Leading on Opportunity has been working very hard on that.
Thank you. Leading on Opportunity's work is to maintain the community's commitment on economic mobility. And I just want to clarify what economic mobility is. It's the idea that one generation is doing better than the generation before it, financially or economically. And the things that create economic mobility are solid jobs, strong education, what we call family and child stability, so having a stable home, having access to grocery stores. And then in Charlotte, we also made a commitment that we would address things like social capital, and social capital is who you know who can do a favor for you, who can help get you access to resources, and then also really important to address here in the South is the impact of segregation. So how does segregation impact one's ability to succeed? So very much so leaning into the equity over equality guardrail that you all have in place. Personally, especially given my experience with education, I always believe in letting the educators do the educating. And so focusing on instruction should be left to the district. And I think there's a lot of responsibility that community members like myself have in making sure that what is around that, the schoolhouse or the district is solid. And so where we often find ourselves leading in is in the partnership with folks who want to work more effectively in instruction. One of our foremost examples is what we call the Crescent Coalition. So it's a collection of nonprofit organizations that are college access nonprofit organizations that are working to ensure that CMS students not only go on to college but succeed. And so what we do is we provide them with the strategy, communication, financial resources to partner together more effectively, which then helps them to more effectively partner with Dr. Hill in the district, more effectively partner with higher education institutions, and more effectively partner and communicate with funders who are also interested. And then I also want to reference the executive and residence model. I think that's a really strong example of folks who don't have instructional experience but understand the value of education, leaning in with the skill sets that they have. So it is, I think, from what I have seen, one of the pioneering examples of how corporate can lean in and support in innovative ways.
We are certainly proud of our executives and residents. Many of them are here today. Some of you may know that the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council came together to really partner with the CMS Foundation and Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools to pair some very talented members of our business community with their counterparts in CMS. And so I'm going to ask a moment of privilege and ask them if they can stand, those who are here. We have several working in the district this year and in previous years. Please stand up and look very nice.
Right.
Sonia, I would just want to call out that when I said special guests, they were supposed to stand, but I guess they were like, we're not guests. We're here, we're not guests.
That's exactly right. Some of them, one in particular I'm seeing here right now, have been in CMS for 2 years, so they don't consider themselves special guests anymore. Others have been here a year, but we are so grateful to them. And I've had the chance to work with them and talk with many of them. It's interesting how they were very nervous about coming into the school district because they felt, how is my skill set going to support? But to your analogy of the vote, everybody has a role to play, and everybody doesn't have to be in the classroom to support Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. So I'm so grateful to them and the work that they have done. So thank you, Sherri. I didn't even plan that. Really well. But the foundation is very excited to facilitate that. Sherri, you talked a little bit about college and career access. One of my favorite parts, Dr. Hill, of the presentation was seeing the students who are doing that, but also other pathways. And as we think about enrolled, enlisted, and employed, and it occurs to me, you're all gathered here together, daily doing the work within CMS. And some of you are parents, so I know there's some parents represented in the room. But your thoughts on how to make sure that school leaders know how to help parents be able to really advocate well for their students and share this whole idea of endless possibilities. Because we all know one size does not fit all, right? And all of us who are parents know that sometimes you look at your children and go, where did that come from? You know, they're all very different. You've met one child, you've met one child.
So I think it's really important that we try to make things as easy and as simple to understand as possible. So one thing that I would say about us as educators, and this is not Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, I've worked in multiple school districts across the state, is that sometimes the language that we speak is not a language that our parents understand and that our parents can access, especially when we talk about economic mobility and making sure that we're working with parents that may not have access in order to advocate for their students. So what I would say is that we have to make things as easy and simple as possible. I highlighted Madison earlier today, but I will say as a superintendent here, as an educator for the last 26 years in North Carolina, maneuvering through all of the things, through all of the pathways, through the courses, through the weighted, through the this, to the application process, to understand what you get on the other side was difficult for me as the leader of the 16th largest school district in the country, just being real transparent. So if it's difficult for me to do that, imagine what it's like for our parents who perhaps did not have great experiences coming through school, or through parents who may not understand what options are available to their child. So I think we just have to work really, really hard to make sure that we're removing any barriers and that we're being really clear with parents so they understand what their students get when they graduate. What's the motivation? What's the pipeline? What's the pathway? And that can't start their senior year in high school. It has to start all the way back in middle school so students understand what they're interested in and what the endless possibilities are if they capitalize and work really hard and are aligned to get to the end of that particular pathway.
Sherri, I know that you've probably seen this in your work, that there's not always one solution that will help a family. Sometimes a family needs many different things to come together. And I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the alignment of community resources and the work that you all have done. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but specifically thinking about families.
I think the first thing that was implicit in what Dr. Hill said is starting with the belief that families want to be engaged and want to participate. I recently heard, I think it was a study, I can't exactly remember where I heard it, but it talked about if you see a child struggling, one of the most effective pathways to improving a child's outcomes in whatever area that is giving more supports to the parent, right? And so we think about what makes for a successful home environment. It's having a stable job. Again, it's making sure we have education, which y'all are taken care of, and then making sure those safety net supports are in place. And so some things the community have come together to focus on, like you said, the CELC is focused on workforce. So how do we make sure we're creating a variety of employment options for parents so that they have strong, stable employment and that allows them to participate in the school, in the students' education. Also, when we think about the work of nonprofits and foundations have invested heavily in making sure programs like the 2040 plan by the city, or we're investing in equitable housing so that home ownership is available. Stable housing leads to stable education in a variety of ways. And then I think the last thing that I would lift up is the government sector. One of the foremost examples we should be proud of is our county's investment in accessible pre-K. Knowing that pre-K is available to anyone who wants access to it has trickle-down effects. Not only does it make sure that that student is prepared when entering kindergarten, but it also serves as a place for that parent to have somewhere safe where they know their child is being educated so that they can be employed and maintain their job. And so just as you lifted up, Sonia, making sure that we're taking care of all the things that surround the schoolhouse helps the schoolhouse and educators to be more effective.
So this next question, I don't know if Dwight planted this question or not. It says, what opportunities are there to have more schools, Dr. Hill, like Renaissance West? Again, I don't know if Dwight planted it or not. To build wraparound services for all students.
Yes, so I would say that Ren West is a really great example of what is possible when public and private partnerships come together to build out something great. They have had great success, and of course that is a huge tribute to Dwight's leadership as well as the leadership of others. But what I would say is there's lots of opportunities for us to partner. There's nothing that's in the works right now that's the same model, but there are other models out there that we are discussing. I was just actually on a meeting a couple of weeks ago with board member Byers-Bailey about some potential other partnerships in terms of building those wraparound services that are specific to the needs of that school from an asset-based mindset and members of the community.
Mm-hmm. Sherri, what do or did you identify as national and or local feedback or impact of the poverty study, the Chetty study?
So what was the feedback?
Yes, I guess nationally and locally.
So I'll answer that question in two ways. First, in terms of local feedback, and then nationally. So the local reception, I was not here in 2014, but what from I understand from folks who were, is that folks either fell on one of two ends of the spectrum. One was, this was a wake-up call, how could this be true in Charlotte, which is recognized, as I said, as one of the fastest growing and most thriving communities. On the other hand, for folks who had been working in education or nonprofit or who came from those conditions, said, finally, we're getting the acknowledgement that we've been waiting for from the broader community. Either way, it was an opportunity to show up, as Charlotte always does, with this bold urgency and action to get something done. And so the community came together, unlike any other from what I understand, to make a collective effort toward progress. So school leaders, faith leaders, corporate leaders, nonprofit government leaders formed a task force which put together a plan for what we would do over the course of the next 30 years. And that plan continues on, and folks continue to be invested now 10 years later. On the national side, what we have heard from Raj Chetty and folks at Harvard and other leading research institutions is that there's been no other community that has really grabbed a hold of the information to say, this will no longer be true, and we're going to work towards change together. What we know is that Raj Chetty has talked about a new study that we'll be releasing this summer that will show progress. And I'm really hopeful that we will see the evidence of our hard work in that study around what it looks like to make a goal, to commit to getting 1% better every day, and then 10 years later being able to see the culmination of that good community work.
Are there any unofficial results you want to share with us?
The data is embargoed, but what I will say is I think we as a community should be very proud of what we will see.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Hill, what instructional strategies do you expect will yield really strong results for our students of color in the goals that have been set by the board?
Number one, high expectations. The belief that every single student can and will be successful. Making sure that we're providing on grade level content that's standard aligned, and when students do not have the skills to access that grade level content, that we're building scaffolding so that they can meet those standards. Also making sure that we are using data to be able to collect the specific areas that may be foundational skills that students are missing, but not living in that foundational area. Again, making sure that students have access. And then the other thing that I would say, which is found in Guardrail 3, is making sure that while we are attending to academics, that we are expanding the horizons of our students. So please don't forget how valuable it is for students to engage in field experiences that are tied to the curriculum, the opportunity for students to see what is possible, taking students on expeditions to see that if you are interested in things like transportation, what the airport has to offer, all of the many different things that are available. Because students, a lot of students, if you ask them what they want to do, they sometimes just have the very basic things. But the possibilities are absolutely endless for our students. So we have to make sure that we are exposing them and making sure that we have really high expectations for our students.
So Sherri, and this question is to both of you, but I'm going to ask Sherri to answer first. Growth and change can be very challenging, even the smallest amounts. I'm hearing you say that 3% is considered Herculean in a school year. What keeps you in the space of possibility about what can happen here in Mecklenburg County? And then there was a question submitted about what do each of you want your legacies to be? So because I have limited time, I'm cheating and giving you 2 questions. You can give one answer that brings both of those together.
Okay. I think for a long time, I felt like there was a lot for me to give back, right? Like a lot had been given for me, and this is in terms of what keeps me motivated, why do I keep going? I talked about my granny, I talked about my mom, and I saw them struggle to create what they wanted for me, even if they didn't know it was possible, but the hope of it is what kept them going. And now that I'm a mom, I get that. You know, when I think about my work, it is like carrying my baton while I have it. While I may not see what I know deserves to be true in my generation, I want that to be possible for my daughter, Jocelyn. I want her, she'll have her own burdens to carry, but I hope that they are a little bit lighter. And then what keeps me going, I use this analogy often. When I think about education, when I think about economic mobility, there's no end, right? Like every year we have new goals that we set forward to keep going. And it helps me to think about it like exercise, right? You don't exercise and get fit and then you're done, but you say, now that I've reached this goal, I'm gonna keep going and keep going. And sometimes that means adjusting and going back and starting over again. And then sometimes you do really well and you can push forward. That just helps keep me in a reality around what my expectations can be while also keeping me really hopeful and excited about the future. Yeah.
Dr. Hill?
You know me, I forgot the question.
So I'm wrapping up. I wanted to know what keeps you motivated, knowing that change is slow and gradual. And then there was a question that came in about what you want your legacy to be.
Okay, so what keeps me motivated is visiting schools. So when I have the opportunity to walk into school buildings, buildings like Coolwood STEAM Academy, buildings like West Charlotte High School, buildings like Audrey Kell, buildings like Butler High School. I don't want to call them all out, but I just get so motivated when I have an opportunity to speak with the principal, to hear their vision and what they're doing, and then to walk into classrooms and I see teachers that are going for it and going for it hard. We have such amazing people in this district. I mean, hands down amazing. So that's really what keeps me motivated. And what I want my legacy to be is that I worked really hard and that I saw the value in people and that I looked for the gold, and together, we worked together to focus on the crown to ensure that each generation is thriving.
Let's give them a round of applause.